Hey everyone, welcome back to Ignite Your Soul, where we awaken the truth, embrace the extraordinary, and ignite a fire within. I got up this morning and was on my way to the beach because particularly on Sunday mornings, I get up and go to the beach, which is actually just south of Clearwater Beach. And oftentimes there are things that come up that I contemplate or are things that come to my mind. And today, what came to my mind, not only for myself, and I thought would be helpful for you in your life, is really how our past decisions shape our present moment. Okay. So I was particularly thinking about this because every choice and every decision that we make is based where we are at that particular time in our life. And that is based on our beliefs, our conditioning, the subconscious programming. And so it's really where you are at that point in time. And when I think about my journey, some of the decisions that I made and I reflected back on were at a point in my life when I was really functioning within that subconscious identity that didn't align with with my soul. It was those subconscious constraints that had programmed these limiting beliefs, these beliefs that really created the need for me to wear this mask to interact with the world. All right. And many, and I realized this as I was walking and reflecting back on my own decisions and choices that I made in my life. Some of them were made unconsciously, just they weren't in the present moment and being in that place of igniting my soul and being in touch with who I really was. They were also in a place of fear and in that place of inadequacy, unworthiness, the place that we go when we're functioning in that identity that doesn't serve us, that is misaligned with who we really are. And so what's interesting as well, which I want to present, is that we're always changing, we're always evolving, we're always transforming. And isn't it interesting that we make these decisions from the past? And as we transform, we're always dealing with these decisions that we made from our prior selves. And I think that's where a lot, at least my suffering came from, was in this place where I made these past decisions and they no longer serve where I am today. But then that misalignment with my soul, I misinterpreted. And I misinterpreted as a struggle of not getting it right, of judgment, self-criticism, and just really feeling that resistance because we're evolving, we're constantly transforming and evolving, and we're dealing with the decisions of our past identity that isn't who we are today, but is who we are. Now, when you think about some of these things that you make decisions and choices for, that is, I'll give you just a simple one. So I lived in Denver for many, many years, and there was a point in my life when I didn't want to live in Denver anymore, but I felt like I had no choice with the job and the family and all of that. Well, that all really unraveled in COVID in 2020, and that opened up the possibility to make that change. That's one. Incidentally, a marriage was another, where when I got into this relationship, and you are who you are at that point, and you have all these intentions of things working out in the best possible way. And then you fast forward 7, 10, 12 years, and you're changing and transforming, and your partner's changing and transforming. And if that goes into two separate directions, then that's where that discord comes. And I really was in that place. I had a couple of things that happened in my life that really shifted me into this self-development, and my partner not so much. And so where I was when I made that decision was a different person. And I still loved this person. I still loved him for who he was, but now there was a separation, a distance, a difference. And if you honor your soul, then you will want to make decisions that honor your soul, but you also want to make decision that honors someone else's soul. And if that means that you can both do that together, then that's great. But if you can't, then that becomes that time when you need to decide to move on. And that's a hard decision and choice to make. Job is another one. You started out with one job, it where you were in a certain point, it aligned and it worked, and then you grow and expand, and it no longer works for you. And so life is really about this recalibration. And it got me thinking about pilots, and I guess it probably would happen with ships as well. When they're on a course to a destination, there's a lot of things that come into play. I imagine, and I don't know all of them, but I imagine wind and weather, and even sometimes the plane. And if you take all that aside, they're heading on a course, but they're having to always make adjustment based on the environment and the elements. And that's similar to what we do in our life, is that we're having to make these course corrections. And if we could just be present for a moment and think about, okay, I was a person and I made this decision, and this decision doesn't align with me any further. And so I need to make a course correction. And you make a course correction always if you're on the journey and path to igniting your soul and coming back to your soul's true essence. You make a decision and choice and recalibrate back to something that aligns. And that's how you continue to seat yourself and align your life with your soul's essence. And in my opinion, that is really what ignites you. Because the more that you're true to yourself, life is incredible. If I look at my life 3 years ago, and where I was in a different city, in a different house, in a different place with a different role and doing something different. I was close to living in Denver with the mountains, and now I'm by the ocean. And my heart and soul really was drawn to the ocean. And I would just dream about what I did this morning, getting up in the morning and walking on the beach and just being present with the elements in such an incredible way. And that's why I go so early in the morning, because there's usually not very many people on the beach, if any, when I get there. This morning when I went, I looked to my left and I could see one person way in the distance, and then I couldn't see anybody else. Now, by the time I end my walk, that obviously changes, but that's okay because I get this time just with the waves of the ocean, and it really does ignite me. I just feel full. I feel just full is, I guess, the best way that I can explain that. The thing about this process and journey is when you get to a place, because it, at least for me, and maybe for you as well, if you're listening to this, you're on a journey. And you're on a journey to come back to your soul's essence, where where joy, happiness, love, empowerment, freedom, all that already is, but you're just peeling away at everything that isn't you, that you programmed over the years and thought was you, but really isn't you. So this life is about peeling away everything that isn't you so that you can step into the vulnerability of making choices and decisions that align with your truths, that align with who you are. And if you're blessed to have a partner that honors that and can also do that, and then you work out what that looks like for your life, then that to me is the best case scenario. But at the end of the day, it's you being true to who you are. And I realized that several years ago, a lot of things had to clear out of my way in order for me to get to that place. And I wrote this intention for several years. And I'm going to do a session on intentions because I think they're just powerful and they can guide your life. In a previous episode, we talked about establishing a connection to the higher power. And so when you have that connection to something bigger than you and you state your intentions and that the intention is pure for you. And what does that mean? It means like it just fits. It is pure. There isn't any energy that's competing for or against it. It just has this purity that, yes, this just aligns with who I am. That intention for me is I surrender to the awakening of my authentic soul. And so I've said this before. What do you think happens? A lot of stuff had to clear out of the way in order for me to be in a place that I could really be with my authentic soul and express my way in that manner. And that's where I am today, of really being in a place where I create what lights me up. And it's still navigation for me of what lights me up and then having to do things that may not and just understanding. But that's a ways from where I was because I would criticize myself for that. I would judge. Why aren't you here? Why did you do that? That was a stupid decision. That was a stupid choice. Because when you are making a choice and decision from that limited identity, from that wounded identity, it's never going to serve you. I say that when you're making a decision from the egoic self, it's always trying to fill the hole. Now, because I feel like when I was functioning in that egoic self, I had this emptiness, I had this void. And I would do things to try and fill that void, to fill that emptiness. You think it's about your career, you think it's about success. You're finding things outside of you in order to fill this void, this hole within you. And that's what the ego does. It just wants to fill the void. But then you realize that once you do that, that you're left again with this empty feeling. And for me, a lot of the intrigue was in the chase of that because, right, that creates a distraction. Whenever I was in the chase of that thing that I thought is what I wanted, that was exciting for me, I guess, because maybe it felt like I was doing something, but it really was distracting me. It really was. I was trying to account for what I wasn't to prove that I was. And then when you get that thing, it doesn't fill the hole. It doesn't fill the void. You're still left with this emptiness. And that's where I was for many, many years of my life, is that I tried to play the game that society says. I tried to look around me and see what it was that other people did to be happy, that it appeared that they were happy, successful, in love, whatever the case. And it never filled the void. It never did. And so then I would be left with having this thing, car, home, new job, promotion, whatever it is, vacation. And then I'm left still with the void because I was doing the chase outside of myself. My soul, I was creating the chase outside of myself, but then saying I surrender to the awakening of my authentic soul. Little bit of a contradiction, don't you think? And so when you establish that with a higher power, reach out and ask, in my opinion, you are going to get not always what you think and what you expect, because I had no idea when I was asking for that what my life would look like. I have to say I'm very blessed. I feel very blessed. But for me to create all this and to move things, and yeah, there was heartache and there was some craziness and some stress, but man, I am 180 degrees from where I was. And so the universe knows the soul's intention and will help to unfold what you're asking for through your intention. All right. But it all starts with, and I want you to think about, is your choices and decisions are always from a place of who you were. And it's easy to try and judge that today, but how can you? You were who you were. I was who I was. I couldn't have been anybody else. I couldn't have expressed myself in any other way because that's not where I was. I still was living within these constraints. I was still believing that I'm not wanted, that I'm not good enough. So they're always from a previous identity. But life is about evaluating that decision and making those adjustments. And what does this require? It requires awareness first, that, okay, I'm in a situation that I thought would be, where I made a decision and I thought would be the right decision, but it doesn't serve me today. So what adjustment do I need to make? It's judging confines you. Judging is a mindset barrier. And so it's going to keep you stuck. It's going to keep you constrained. It's going to keep you from seeing the possibility beyond it. So it's really about making those adjustments and thinking about what you want. And one of the ways that you can do that is starting to establish that relationship with you when you get into a place where you can be present. And for me, it's making that connection to my higher power and grounding down to Mother Earth. And just thinking about what it is that you want. What is the outcome? What is the result that you would like to have? What is the result that you would like to have? And writing them down and just feeling into them. Now, here's the tricky part, is that you don't want to add in there all the details of how to make it happen, what would happen if you make this decision. Just create an environment where you're thinking about what you want and setting the intention that you're now in this place. It's time to course correct. And how might you do that? In setting an intention of what it is that you want. And answers will come to you, and the universe will, if it's an intention that is really aligned, and sometimes it doesn't have to be really aligned. You can have those intentions that where you are today, it is going to serve you. Then you'll find that things will start to unfold. I am where I am today by investing in me. And I don't mean that in a selfish manner that comes across as selfish, but it's about serving you. This is your journey. And yes, there are other people involved. And you always want to make decisions. If they're best for your soul, they're going to be good for your environment. Now, when I say that, everybody in your environment has a choice of whether your decision is good for them. And sometimes you have to make a decision based on where you are if you have to take other people into consideration. All right. But it is really thinking about what it is you want and then setting that intention out there. But more importantly is to avoid the cycle of beating yourself up for past decisions and then being critical, because that's gonna restrict your possibilities as it restricted mine. But the more you can be open to what it is that you want and aligning that with who you are, really the more you're going to continue to move towards what it is that you're wanting, what it is that your soul is calling for, what it is that ignites your soul. You really, truly are. And if you find in that awareness that you might have some blocks, is that you're thinking about what you want, but then you're thinking about, I don't deserve it, I'm not worthy of it, then those are times to release. Those are subconscious constraints, obstacles, challenges that are running in the background that don't know, aren't aware are trying to protect you for some reason. Because those parts, those subconscious parts that run in the background, until you're in a place where you feel comfortable being uncomfortable, being vulnerable, then those parts are always trying to protect because they don't like the unknown. They don't like the unknown. And the reason that, at least for me, the reason that I was trying to figure out how to make this happen and try and work through all the details is because I needed to have that certainty. Your certainty is just in your intention, not in how it will happen. Your certainty, put your certainty in your intention. Get your intention pure to your soul's essence. And how do you know? When you start exploring this, and you're going to make some choices and decisions that aren't aligned. That's fine. That's fine. You'll learn in that process. You'll learn in that process because you're going to know when you were thinking about that decision, and maybe you had another choice there, but you made this decision because of some reason, you will know there is something running in the background that's telling you that maybe this isn't the decision, but it feels like the only decision that you can make. And so that you'll know that you're making maybe a decision. And it's just giving yourself the grace. It really is. It's giving yourself a grace to this process. Because for you to continue to grow, you want to just always honor where you are and the decisions that are your life. And if it's aligning, that if it's igniting, if it's expressing your soul's true essence. So think about that. Think about past decisions that you've made and how those decisions are aligning to who you are today. And if you need to make some course adjustments, you don't necessarily have to make huge course adjustments, just making some course adjustments and learning to listen, learning to get in touch with that part of you that is bringing you back to that freedom, that truth, that happiness, that love, because you're not going to find it out there. It's only honoring what you really want. And it can be difficult. And here's where it gets real for me, because I think about I'm on my death bed. I'm in a place where I know death is inevitable. It's close. And I reflect back on my life and what's important to me. What's important to me is that I honored my soul. I ignited my soul. I settled only for what ignited my soul. And I lived. I lived. I want to say, as I'm taking my last breath, that I lived. I honored and ignited my soul, and I lived. What do you want? What is your soul calling for? Things can always work out in ways that you just don't understand, and they can work out for the good if you just allow yourself to surrender to your soul's true intent, and it will unfold in the way that is for the highest and best. Thank you for listening. I hope that got you thinking about decisions that you've made in the past and how you are a different person today. We're a different person every day, every hour. We're constantly changing and evolving. And it's just about making those course corrections in our life so that we continue to honor who we are today and aligning our life that in a place that gets us to our soul's true essence, expressing our soul's true essence. That's true freedom, true happiness, true peace, joy, empowerment, you name it. Thank you for listening. Today, I want you to step into that extraordinary power of yours so that you can experience, focus, and create and settle only for that which ignites your soul. Thank you for joining me. Light and love. See you next week. Take care.